Welcome to SVG-TV News for Monday, July 31st, 2017. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Rav Gonsalves expressed disgust in Parliament today over what he said is the inefficient use and wastage of public resources in several sectors of the country. Dr. Gonsalves stated that if the nation does not learn to master the art of conservation, more problems will be created.
It pains me, Mr. Speaker, when I see inefficiency in the use of public resources. It pains me when I see how we waste. Whether it's drugs at the hospital, whether it's in electricity, whether it is the way in which we waste some resources in the schools and the way people treat government's vehicles. I mean, I'm all the time among the worst culprits in the government sector are some police drivers.
The Minister of Finance also highlighted a video which has been circulating on social media involving some students smashing furniture at the end of the school term. The Prime Minister said such action is completely unacceptable, as it is the responsibility of the government to allocate funds to replace damaged furniture in every school across the country.
Clearly, it is something which the teachers have to address. The Ministry of Education. You know that is happening. You just can't leave them on their own, and you have to talk to them, and parents have to speak to them, because the amount of money which you spend on furniture on an annual basis is just astronomical. And when you mash them up at the end of the third term, you expect me to have brand new furniture on the first day of the new term. And if I don't have the brand new furniture in every single school for all that is smashed, the authorities are being lambasted on talk shows and on social media. So we have to understand that this is a very small country with limited resources, and we have to have a sense of responsibility.
Meantime, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance made a further appeal to persons to repay their student loans. Dr. Gonsalves said those who refuse to make their payments are engaged in an act of delinquency and is urging these persons to be responsible professionals. His comments came on the heels of a published list of names of persons who may be in default on their payments. Speaking on the economically disadvantaged student loan, in Parliament today, PM Gonsalves said persons who are not repaying their loans must understand it is a liability to the government.
It can't be right for persons who have jobs and you borrowed money, you have a reasonable paying job. There's some persons who working overseas, getting very good salaries there and here, and don't want to pay their student loan. The United States of America, the federal government has a much tougher line than we do have on those who are delinquent. So I've been advised. But when we do these things, somebody has to pay for it. We have, under the student loan program for economically disadvantaged students, we have a liability of over $90 million. Of course, we have monies coming in, but I'm talking what the government, in the absolute sum, has guaranteed.
Noting that thousands of students have become professionals under the Economically Disadvantaged Student Loan Program, which was established in 2002 by his administration, the Prime Minister stressed the need for persons to be responsible and repay their loans, emphasizing that it is the only way that the program can continue.
It can only work if it is being replenished. Because a time will come, if it is not being replenished, that you will get fewer and fewer persons are going to be able to borrow from the fund. That will follow as the night follows day. Because what happens to, what it means, somebody who has once you have matriculation to go into a university, you get a student loan up to a maximum of $120,000. We are already paying the economic costs of about $20,000 for, say, social science students. And for those in law and medicine, in excess of $30,000, and the clinicals, more than $30,000. And from law students and medical students, we'll end up to $150,000. Now, if you don't pay back the money, what it means is that you are getting a scholarship without being competitive, without going through a competitive process for scholarships. And it's just not fair, and it is not fair to others who are coming along, who should be benefiting from the fund.
Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday is in full agreement with the Anti-Trafficking or Smuggling Act tabled in Parliament today by Prime Minister and Minister of National Security Dr. Rav Gonsalves. Dr. Friday noted that having read the bill which addressed the grave offences to the smuggling and trafficking of persons as well as money laundering, he has no problem with the penalties attached. The opposition leader said, given what is taking place in the world today, it is important that the government put policies in place to prevent such crimes.
It is up to a court to determine, when you see the consequences of some of these actions. Every year going across from Libya and various parts of Africa to Europe, thousands of people drown because they take the word of some smuggler who says that the craft in which they're traveling is safe. And many of them never reach their destination. Many of them children. Just cargo for profit, Mr. Speaker, the commodification of people's lives. So I have no problem, Mr. Speaker, in supporting this. And whereas in St. Vincent and the Grenadines we haven't fallen victim of the worst case scenarios, we have to show that we also are part of the civilized world, the world where we feel that the actions of persons who would profit off of other people's misery by transporting them across borders as cargo, that we want no part of it, Mr. Speaker, even if it doesn't come across our borders.
Meantime, Minister of Economic Planning Camilo Gonsalves commended the country in remaining vigilant, which he said indicates that St. Vincent and the Grenadines will not become a welcoming home for persons who smuggle other human beings.
But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that while we can stand here righteously and say we don't have these problems, a lot of that is because it was difficult to get to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's very hard to smuggle human beings to St. Vincent and the Grenadines or through St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the days before an international airport, for example, because you'd have to smuggle them through some intermediate point. As we reorient ourselves in the way that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition and the Honorable Prime Minister have discussed, to be more welcoming to people coming into our shores, entrepreneurial criminals will take a second look at St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And with economies and political unrest that come in waves and take place in our neighborhood, South America and Central America, due to the fact that the Honorable Prime Minister has said many times that we live in a dangerous neighborhood, with drugs going one way and guns going the other way, it is not unreasonable to guard ourselves against people also traversing our borders.
There needs to be a greater link between the agriculture and tourism industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That's according to business consultant Noel Dixon as he spoke on Magic 103.7 Sunday program discussing issues of concern with the local agriculture sector. Given examples of other Caribbean countries where there exist stronger partnerships between tourism and agriculture, Dixon said that a similar approach is needed here to aid in the development of both sectors.
We see a heavy importation of certain goods that we can actually produce here in St. Vincent Grenadines. And we also, if you were to take some time out and visit these hotels that cater for tourism, you hardly find a local dish, a dish made from, say, breadfruit, bananas, that sort of stuff. Whereas if you go to a place like Jamaica, you will see how much the Jamaicans utilize what they produce to provide meals for the tourists. I mean, these people come, they're accustomed to certain things and they want to come here and get something different. And we seem not to be making that sort of linkage between our tourism and our agriculture.
Dixon added that despite the many challenges facing agriculture, there are many persons from different sectors willing to play a role in boosting capacity, adding that a decline in the productivity level will have serious impact on the overall economy.
I know colleagues who are in banking who are still, they cultivate, produce a lot of tomatoes, sweet potatoes, that sort of stuff. But they are crying out for the market. And there is another area that I have serious concern about, and this also affecting farmers, and we need to have something that is systematic in controlling this thing. The issue of predal larceny. You know, that is really affecting our whole agriculture sector and the way people produce. But we have seen a significant decline, not only in our agriculture sector, but in all the other sectors in St. Vincent and Grenadines over that period of time. And it means then that productivity in our country is really on the decline, and it is having serious impact upon our entire economy.
Also speaking on the program was entrepreneur Leon Samuel, who said there needs to be more serious structures in place to ensure that the agriculture sector can properly develop.
To send a clear signal to the market, to the farmers, and to the public in a whole that we are serious about this agriculture business. We need to have a structure. And when I say structure now, I'm talking about the whole. I'm talking about this in a holistic way. Mm-hmm. But just like how we could go down to Argyle now, we see one pretty nice facility there for airport. That alone can send a signal. What do the farmers have that they can hold on and say, watch what we got down the road down there. Mm-hmm. Let me go in the hills and produce. Because when I go in the hills and produce, when I go in the farm and produce, I go in down, they go sell that. What we have.
Miss SVG Jamil Roberts placed second runner-up in the JC's International Queen Show, which took place in Antigua last night. Roberts captured the best modeling skills and evening wear. This year's show was held under the theme, Nature's Beauties, a celebration of the environment. Coming up, community and social activist Oscar Allen remembered for his activism. This and other stories when we return with more local news. Don't go away. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is this evening mourning the loss of one who many have described as a true advocate for social justice. Oscar Allen, an esteemed educator and commentator who served as chairman of the People's Movement for Change, the PMC, a non-partisan group which seeks to defend the interests of the people, passed away on Friday evening, July 28th. In light of his great work and contribution to the national development, along with his outstanding contribution to his community of Diamonds, members of that community as well as leaders of various trade unions shared with SVG-TV News how the work of the community builder and social activists impacted their lives. Nikita Tony has more in this report.
Known as an educator, commentator, and advocate for social justice, the passing of Oscar Allen has left a damp feeling over the Diamonds village, and more so, the entire Vincentian public. As word surfaced of his death on Friday, July 28, Vincentians here at home and in the diaspora took to social media to express their sympathy to the bereaved family, as well as share what they recall most of the fallen son of the soil. Speaking with SVG-TV earlier today, General Secretary of the National Workers' Movement, Noel Jackson, remembered Allen as a true community man who always had the interests of the people at heart.
Nationally, Oscar would be known as the Black Power man, as the ULIMU man, as the UPM man. The fact is that Oscar basically made his mark on the Vincentian society. He was a man of the cloth. Those who know his writings and familiar with his writing, when you read Oscar, you see some theological principles coming through at you. And Oscar is going to be greatly missed. He is going to be missed for his commentary, sometimes controversial, but he is going to be missed.
President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, described Allen as an outstanding individual whom he considered to be a pioneer in the development of the nation's history.
He has always speak to the issue of fundamental rights and freedom, and he's always very encouraging. I see him also as a trade unionist in his own right. I'm passionate also about the whole reparation, repairing the wrongs being done to our indigenous peoples of African descent. He has made several contributions to nation building, and I want to salute him for the work that he has done. And I hope that at some point in time the government could really name something in his honor, because his legacy has been a very rich one.
Reminiscing on how he first came into contact with the late Allen, close friend and resident of Diamonds Village, Simeon Green, said he would like to remember his dear friend as a man who stood for his calling and his love for the Word of God through his endless efforts to make this nation a better place. Other residents of Diamonds Village also took the opportunity to share how they have been influenced by the life and work of the late Oscar Allen.
Always out for poor people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, not for Diamonds only. Try to educate you in education, soccer, beat jumps, any kind of things. You're always involved in a lot of things.
Moving. After I get my serving trouble in Trinidad, then he helped me to come out from jail. I had the paper come down the student. And the people said, I believe last day that me and he moved good. I couldn't believe where I had died.
He helped my granddaughter with her lesson, and it was just before he went in the hospital. He was doing something for her, and then he told her he going to the hospital, so somebody else, he sent her to somebody else that she could finish it. We'll miss him a lot, and may his soul rest in peace.
Having made his mark in the Vincentian Society, many are of the opinion that the life and work of Oscar Allen should go down in Vincentian history. Nikita Tony reporting for SVG-TV News.
Meanwhile, many Vincentians took to the airwaves on Sunday, July 29, 2017, to express their condolences to the family and friends of Oscar Allen on WeFM's Views on Issues program. A few of them highlighted some of the significant work in which the community activist was engaged and how he aided in the development of their community.
We learn culture, we learn entrepreneurship, we learn if you did not succeed in school, Brother A would make sure that you would come to his house and he would teach you. So he really was very instrumental in our community in Diamond Village.
Sometimes we would have number of discussions, heated discussions. And one of the qualities they picked up in Oscar is that whereas many people try to resolve differences and so on by shouting and becoming very aggressive, he was always very calm and he listened. He would listen to people. And then sometimes he brought a very different perspective. Not necessarily one that you had to agree with, because sometimes we disagreed, but certainly it was a very different perspective.
So those experiences, along with what other people have been sharing, this man has left an invaluable mark on this earth. And I hope that we will be able to emulate his legacies and make sure that they are well planted in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And he can become a point of legacy for our heritage tourism.
And in Parliament today, members on both sides of the House, in a show of solidarity, paid their respects to the community and social activists. According to some, though Allen was a strong believer of his sometimes impractical notions, his intention, however, for the better of SVG was never questioned.
Oscar was a community man. And he was ascribed the father of the village. If you're from Diamonds, Brother A was seen as the father of the community. Many times when I was at A-level college and I didn't grasp some sociological concepts, I will go by Brother A. He would sit me down. He would always have a text on the issue, and soon he will tell you, your time is up because someone else has to come in. He had a virtual school at his home.
Even when we were close comrades in struggle, we didn't agree all the time. And as an independent thinker, it is very difficult for people to agree all the time with Oscar. And as I say, sometimes his impracticality would make you shake your head. But always very insightful in his analysis. An honest and decent person.
Mr. Speaker, always, when the voice of Oscar Allen or a commentary by him was made, whether you agreed or not, you took it seriously. Because, you know, here is someone of considerable intellect, somebody who cared very deeply for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but I think larger than that, he cared very deeply for humanity.
He had strong views and he defended them. Reference has been made here to the fact that sometimes I have to give the Prime Minister that he will say things which he don't think are practical. I've had that experience myself with him. But I can never doubt his sincerity and his commitment to what he stood for. Oscar always had a view that somehow was somewhat different. But you can't say it was foolish. He always had a view, which to me was the hallmark of his independence.